I need you to stop what you're doing right now, because what I'm about to tell you could be the most important thing you hear this year, and I say that not to alarm you, but because after more than 2 decades working in cardiology, I have watched too many people ignore what I'm about to share. I have sat beside too many hospital beds, held too many families' hands in waiting rooms, and delivered too much devastating news that could have been prevented. Not by surgery, not by expensive medication, not by some complicated medical protocol, by changing what happens in the first 60 seconds after they open their eyes. I want you to think about this morning. Think about the exact moment you woke up. What did you do? Did you hear the alarm? Or maybe just the light coming through the curtains? And swing your legs off the bed and stand up? Did you move fast because you needed the bathroom? Or because the coffee was calling? Or because you've always been someone who just gets up and gets going? Most people don't think about it. It's automatic. It's one of those thousands of small movements that make up a life. You wake up, you get up. Simple. Except it isn't simple. Not for your heart, not for your brain, and not, most critically, if you are over 60 years old. What I'm describing is one of the most underestimated cardiovascular risks in the world, and I am going to explain exactly why, exactly what is happening inside your body during those first moments of the morning, and exactly what you should be doing instead. Because this isn't about fear. This is about information, and the people who are dying from this, and yes, people are dying from this, are not dying because they were careless or unhealthy or unlucky. They are dying because nobody ever told them. Let me start from the beginning. I became a cardiologist because I lost my grandfather when I was 14 years old. He was 68, strong man, never smoked, walked every day, ate well. One morning he woke up, stood up quickly, said he felt dizzy, sat back down on the edge of the bed, and never got back up. Massive cardiac event. Gone before the ambulance arrived. For years I carried that image, the edge of the bed, the few seconds between standing and falling. I didn't understand it then. I understand it now with a clarity that keeps me up at night because I know how many people are living that same moment, every single morning, without knowing what it means. During sleep, your body undergoes a series of profound physiological shifts. Your heart rate slows. Your blood pressure drops significantly, sometimes by as much as 20% compared to your daytime baseline. Your blood becomes, in clinical terms, slightly more viscous, thicker, slower moving, because you haven't had water in hours and your body has been in a horizontal position where circulation distributes differently than when you are upright. Your vascular system, the network of arteries and veins that carries blood to every organ and muscle, relaxes during sleep. The smooth muscles surrounding your blood vessels loosen. Your vessels dilate. This is healthy and necessary. It's one of the reasons sleep is so restorative. But here is where the danger lives. When you wake up, particularly between the hours of 6 and 10 in the morning, your body initiates what is known in cardiology as the morning surge. This is a documented, well-studied, and in some patients, extremely dangerous physiological event. Your adrenal glands release a flood of cortisol, the primary stress hormone. Your sympathetic nervous system activates. Your heart rate begins climbing. Your blood pressure starts rising. All of this is normal. All of this is designed to prepare your body to move from the passive, restorative state of sleep into the active demands of waking life. The problem, and this is the problem that has cost countless lives, is what happens when you force that transition to happen too fast. When an older person stands up abruptly from a lying or sitting position, the body does not have time to compensate. The heart needs a moment to recognize that blood must now be pumped upward against gravity to reach the brain. The vascular system needs a moment to constrict, to tighten those relaxed blood vessels and push blood pressure high enough to perfuse vital organs. The autonomic nervous system, which regulates all of this automatically and unconsciously, needs a few seconds to receive the signal, process it, and respond. In a young, healthy person, That compensation happens in a fraction of a second. You barely notice it. In a person over 60, and especially in those with hypertension, diabetes, heart disease, or even mild dehydration, that compensation is slower, sometimes much slower, and in the gap between standing up and the body catching up, blood pressure drops. Sometimes it drops dramatically. This is called orthostatic hypotension, and it is far more common than most people realize. Studies published in journals like Circulation and the Journal of the American College of Cardiology have shown that orthostatic hypotension affects between 15 and 30% of elderly adults. In people over 75, some estimates put that number even higher, and the consequences of that sudden drop in blood pressure are not minor. When blood pressure drops too fast upon standing, the brain, which is extremely sensitive to changes in blood flow, doesn't receive enough oxygen. This is why people feel dizzy when they stand up quickly. This is why vision goes dark at the edges. This is why legs feel suddenly weak and unreliable. In mild cases, it passes in seconds and leaves no trace. In serious cases, it causes falls, fractures, head injuries. And in the worst cases, particularly in people with existing cardiovascular vulnerability, it triggers a reflexive overcorrection. The heart, sensing that blood pressure has dropped too low, responds with a sudden, powerful surge. The vessels contract rapidly. Pressure spikes, and in arteries that are already narrowed by plaque, already stiff from decades of circulation, already under strain from hypertension or diabetes, that sudden spike can rupture something, can dislodge a clot, can trigger an arrhythmia, can cause a heart attack, can cause a stroke, can cause sudden death. I want to be clear about something, because I think it matters deeply. The people this happens to are not people who ignored their health. Many of them were following their doctor's instructions, taking their medications, watching their diet, and still, every single morning, without knowing it, they were doing the one thing that put all of that careful effort at risk, because nobody told them about the morning. Nobody explained to them that the hours between waking and mid-morning are statistically the most dangerous hours of the day for cardiovascular events. That more heart attacks happen between 6 and noon than at any other time. That the combination of the morning cortisol surge, the activation of the sympathetic nervous system, the increased platelet aggregation, the tendency of the blood cells to clump together and form clots, and the sudden physical demand of standing creates a perfect storm inside the aging cardiovascular system. And nobody told them that the way they get out of bed is part of that storm. I have had this conversation with patients for 20 years, and I can tell you that without exception, when I explain this, the reaction is the same. A moment of stillness. Then, I've been doing that my whole life. Then, my husband does that every morning. Then, my mother, she had her stroke in the morning, getting out of bed. Yes, I know. If you want to understand more about protecting your heart in the morning hours and how to reduce your risk of stroke, heart attack, and dangerous blood pressure fluctuations, especially if you or someone you love is over 60, we've put together a complete guide in the first link in the description. It covers morning routines, blood pressure management, warning signs that are often missed, and the specific changes that cardiologists recommend for older adults. It could make a real difference. Please take a look. Now I want to go deeper, because the abrupt morning rise is only one piece of a larger puzzle, and I think you deserve to understand the full picture. The morning surge I mentioned, that flood of cortisol and the activation of the sympathetic nervous system, does more than just raise blood pressure. It also triggers the release of epinephrine, which you may know as adrenaline. Epinephrine increases heart rate. It constricts peripheral blood vessels. It prepares the body for action, for the ancient biological imperative of waking and moving and dealing with the challenges of the day. But there's another effect of epinephrine that most people don't know about. It makes platelets stickier. Platelets are the tiny cells in your blood that form clots when you're injured. They're essential. Without them, you'd bleed uncontrollably from a paper cut. But when platelets become too sticky, too reactive, they can form clots inside blood vessels that shouldn't be there. And in the morning, under the influence of the cortisol and adrenaline surge, platelet aggregation increases significantly. This is why, in studies that analyzed the timing of heart attacks and strokes, the morning hours consistently show the highest incidence. The blood is thicker. The platelets are stickier. The blood pressure is rising rapidly. The arteries, particularly in older adults, are stiffer and less elastic than they were decades ago. And then the person wakes up and jumps out of bed. It's not a mystery. It's physiology. And there's more. During sleep, particularly in the early morning hours, levels of plasminogen activator inhibitor 1, a protein that suppresses the body's ability to dissolve clots, are at their highest. The natural clot-busting mechanisms in the blood are at their lowest efficiency precisely when clot formation is at its highest. This is not a design flaw. It was likely adaptive for our evolutionary history. But for a 70-year-old with arterial plaque, it is a dangerous combination. Add to this the fact that most older adults wake up in a state of mild dehydration. 8 hours without water means the blood is slightly more concentrated, slightly thicker. The kidneys have been conserving fluid overnight. The total blood volume available to the heart and vessels is reduced compared to midday. Dehydration, even mild dehydration, raises the risk of clot formation and reduces the cardiovascular system's ability to compensate for sudden changes in position. I want to talk about something else that happens in the morning that compounds all of these risks because it's something I see in my patients constantly and something that is almost never discussed in mainstream health conversations. Cold. In many homes, the morning is the coldest part of the day. Temperature drops overnight. Many people sleep in cooler rooms and then move into slightly warmer common areas. Others do the opposite. Sleep in a warm bed and then step onto cold floors, move through chilly hallways. And cold, for the cardiovascular system, is a significant stressor. When the body is exposed to cold, peripheral blood vessels constrict. The body pulls blood away from the extremities to protect the core temperature, the temperature of the vital organs. This constriction increases peripheral vascular resistance, which means the heart must work harder to push blood through a narrower network of vessels. Blood pressure rises. In a healthy 30-year-old, this is manageable. The heart compensates easily. The vessels adapt, and the whole system finds a new equilibrium within seconds. In a 75-year-old with hypertension, whose arteries are already stiffened by decades of pressure and perhaps narrowed by atherosclerotic plaque, this sudden increase in resistance can be the trigger. Research has shown that the incidence of myocardial infarction, heart attacks, increases significantly during cold months and in cold climates, and that the morning cold exposure is a meaningful contributing factor. This doesn't mean that older adults should avoid the cold. It means they should be aware of it and take specific steps to manage the transition from warm bed to cool environment, carefully and slowly. Let me tell you about a patient of mine. I'll call her Margaret, though that's not her real name. She was 71, active, sharp, a retired teacher who walked 3 times a week and managed her blood pressure with medication. By every standard measure, she was doing everything right. She came to see me after a fall. She had woken up at 6:15 in the morning, swung her legs off the bed, stood up to go to the bathroom, felt a wave of dizziness, and went down. She fractured her wrist catching herself. It could have been her hip. It could have been her skull against the corner of the nightstand. When I evaluated her, her blood pressure lying down was 128/78. Excellent. I asked her to stand quickly, as she normally would, and measured again within 30 seconds, 104/66, a drop of more than 20 points in systolic pressure, significant orthostatic hypotension. She had never been tested for this. Neither her primary care physician nor her previous cardiologist had ever asked her how she got out of bed in the morning. This is not a criticism of those physicians. It is a reflection of a systemic gap in the way we discuss morning cardiovascular risk with aging patients. We talk about medications, about diet, about exercise, about stress. We almost never talk about the 30 seconds after the alarm goes off. Margaret changed the way she wakes up. 6 months later, she reported 0 episodes of morning dizziness. Her morning blood pressure readings were more stable. She felt better. She was not hospitalized again. A simple behavioral change. No new medication, no procedure, just information. If you want practical cardiology-backed guidance on how to manage blood pressure, reduce stroke risk, and build a morning routine that protects your heart, especially if you're caring for an elderly parent or you yourself are navigating these years, the first link in the description has a comprehensive guide that we've developed based on current research and clinical practice. It is free, it is detailed, and it is written specifically for people who want to take this seriously. Now I want to give you the specific answer to what you came here to find, because you deserve it plainly, without hesitation. The dangerous habit that thousands of elderly people are doing every morning, the one that cardiologists like me worry about, that is contributing to preventable heart attacks and strokes and falls and deaths, is this: getting out of bed too quickly. That's it. That is the habit. Not exotic, not complicated. Something so ordinary, so automatic, so deeply embedded in the routine of daily life that it never even registers as a behavior. You wake up, you get up. What could be dangerous about that? Now you know what is dangerous about it. Now you understand the physiology, the morning surge, the cortisol, the platelet aggregation, the dehydration, the orthostatic drop in blood pressure, the vascular stiffness of aging, the cold. Now you understand why those first 60 seconds are a window of cardiovascular vulnerability that demands respect. And now I want to tell you exactly what to do instead. When you wake up tomorrow morning, I want you to resist the impulse to move immediately. Lie still for 30 seconds. Keep your eyes open if you like, or closed. It doesn't matter. But don't move your body from horizontal to vertical yet. Just breathe. Let your nervous system register that you are awake. Let your heart begin its morning adjustment with you still lying flat, where the circulatory demands are lower and the risk of an orthostatic drop is 0. After 30 seconds, move to a sitting position, but slowly. Don't swing your legs off in one motion. Roll to your side first, then push yourself up. Let your legs dangle off the edge of the bed. Sit there. I recommend at least 1 full minute in this position, though 30 seconds is the absolute minimum. While you sit, breathe deliberately. Deep, slow breaths. Not because this is meditation, though that's a benefit, but because controlled breathing activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which counterbalances the cortisol surge, reduces the spike in blood pressure, and gives your vascular system time to begin adjusting to the upright position. Look around the room. Let your visual system orient. Wiggle your toes. Let the blood flow into your feet and legs before they have to bear your weight. Then, and only then, stand. And stand slowly. Use the nightstand or the headboard or the wall if you need support. Don't be proud about this. Pride has sent people to the emergency room. Use the support. Once you are standing, pause again. 10 seconds. Feel whether you are stable. Feel whether the room is moving. If you feel any dizziness, sit back down immediately. Do not try to push through it. That dizziness is your body telling you that blood pressure has dropped faster than it can compensate, and pushing through it is how falls happen. If you feel steady, move forward. Take your time getting to the bathroom. Make a habit of drinking a glass of water within the first 10 minutes of waking. Dehydration is a risk factor you can address immediately and simply. Avoid rushing. Avoid starting with anything that creates sudden cardiovascular demand. A cold shower, strenuous exercise, intense emotional stimulation from the news, or a stressful phone call. Give your heart the first 15 minutes of the day as a gradual transition period. After that, do whatever you need to do. The risk window narrows significantly once the morning surge has stabilized and your body has fully adjusted to the vertical position. I want to add something here, because it's important and often overlooked. If you are on blood pressure medication, particularly certain classes of antihypertensives like alpha blockers, which include medications like doxazosine and prazosin, or certain diuretics, your risk of orthostatic hypotension is higher than average. These medications lower blood pressure effectively, but they also reduce the vascular system's ability to respond quickly to positional changes. If you are on these medications, the slow morning rise is not optional. It is essential. Similarly, if you take medications for an enlarged prostate, some of which belong to the same alpha blocker family, the risk applies equally. If you are over 70, if you have diabetes, which can damage the autonomic nerves that regulate blood pressure, if you have Parkinson's disease, which affects autonomic function, if you are dehydrated from recent illness or from the previous evening's alcohol consumption. All of these factors increase your vulnerability in those first morning moments. Talk to your physician about whether orthostatic hypotension testing should be part of your regular cardiovascular assessment. It's a simple test, blood pressure lying down, then standing, and it can reveal a risk that is otherwise completely invisible on a standard checkup. There is a study I return to often when I think about this topic. It was conducted in Japan and published in the journal Hypertension Research. Researchers followed a large group of elderly adults and monitored their blood pressure continuously through the morning hours. They found that the speed and magnitude of the morning blood pressure surge was one of the strongest independent predictors of cardiovascular events, more predictive in some analyses than the average daytime blood pressure reading. This finding has been replicated. The morning matters in ways that we are only beginning to fully appreciate and to communicate effectively to patients and the public. Another study, published in the British Medical Journal, found that the risk of ischemic stroke, the kind caused by a blood clot blocking an artery in the brain, is highest in the first 2 hours after waking. The risk of myocardial infarction follows a similar pattern, and these are not marginal statistical differences. In some analyses, the morning risk is 2 to 3 times higher than the baseline risk during other hours of the day. 2 to 3 times, for something that happens every single day. I want that number to land. Because when you understand the magnitude of the morning cardiovascular risk, and then you understand how simple the behavioral interventions are, it creates a very clear imperative. This information needs to reach people, not buried in a medical journal, not mentioned briefly in a doctor's appointment, clearly, directly to the people who need it. That is why I make these videos. That is why I am here, talking to you today. Before I close, I want to address something that I know some of you are thinking. You are thinking, I have been getting out of bed quickly for 60, 70 years. Nothing has happened to me. Why should I change now? Here is my answer, and I want you to hear it with the weight it deserves. The cardiovascular risk profile of a 65 or 70-year-old is categorically different from the risk profile of a 40-year-old. The arteries are stiffer. The autonomic nervous system is slower to respond. The blood pressure regulation mechanisms are less precise. The platelet function has changed. The medications many older adults are taking affect the system. The baseline level of arterial narrowing, even in people who have never had a cardiac event, is statistically higher. Getting away with something for 50 years does not mean the risk was never there. It means you were fortunate, and that the accumulated changes of aging had not yet pushed your system past the threshold where that risk became a clinical event. The threshold changes. Quietly, without announcement, and one morning, one perfectly ordinary morning, what has been a risk becomes a reality. I am not trying to frighten you. I am trying to give you the opportunity to make one simple, free, effortless change that has real and documented protective value, because you deserve that opportunity, because your family deserves you to have it. 30 seconds lying still. 1 minute on the edge of the bed. Stand slowly. Breathe deliberately. That is all. If there is someone in your life, a parent, a grandparent, a neighbor, a friend, who you know gets up quickly in the morning, I am asking you to share this with them. Not to alarm them, not to make them afraid of their own bed, but because information is protection. And this information, given to the right person at the right moment, could prevent a fall, could prevent a stroke, could prevent a morning that a family never recovers from. I have been doing this work for more than 20 years. I have seen the best outcomes medicine can offer, and I have seen the worst. And I can tell you with certainty that the most powerful tool I have ever had is not a stent, not a defibrillator, not a bypass surgery. It is a conversation. A moment of clarity between a physician and a patient, or in this case between me and you, through this screen, where the right information arrives in time to matter. This is that conversation, and I hope it arrived in time. Please subscribe to this channel if you are not already with us. Every video I create is built around the same commitment, bringing real cardiology knowledge out of hospital corridors and into the lives of the people who need it most. We cover heart health, stroke prevention, blood pressure management, the cardiovascular impacts of sleep, diet, stress, medication, all of it explained clearly, without jargon, without agenda, with the same care I bring to every patient I see. There are more conversations coming about the foods that are silently damaging arteries, about the sleep positions that affect nighttime blood pressure, about the warning signs of a heart attack that women experience differently than men, about the medications that most physicians don't have time to fully explain, about the tests your cardiologist might not be ordering that could save your life. All of it is coming, and all of it matters. Subscribe. Share this video with someone you love. And tomorrow morning, when you wake up, take your time. Your heart will thank you for it. I promise.